Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out to our webinar today. My name is Christy Thompson, and today we'll be talking about understanding cyber insurance and how to protect your business and really just get paid. So let me go ahead and do a few housekeeping items. We're going to keep everybody muted, but you can put in questions through the chat. The host and the panelists will be taking them throughout the presentation. If we're unable to get to them, we will hold them till the end, try to answer them there. Now let's go ahead and introduce your host, Phillip Long. So Philip, he is the CEO of Business Information Solutions, and he's worked in the IT industry for over 20 years. He has 600 plus clients from Gulfport to Dothan. He's the current owner of 5 businesses, and he's also a certified information system security professional, as well as a designation for the CMMC. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Philip. Philip?
Great. And I really do appreciate all you guys joining today. I know your time's valuable, and want to kind of just go over the layout of this before I introduce Mike. He's having a little bit of trouble getting on right now. I hope he can make it, but it's okay because I think I can tote his water if he can't make it. But the deal that I wanted to do was to work with, like a lot of companies, these small and mid-sized companies that are buying cyber insurance. There's a couple of pitfalls that I see that are happening, and I want to, basically give you the tools so that you know whether you're getting a good deal, and also, do you have enough coverage? Are you filling out the forms right? All those kind of things are so important. The good news is that the cyber liability insurance field has very much stabilized. It's not the Wild West like it was even 18 months ago. So, and the reason for that is because of the cyber liability insurance forms are now getting more granular. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the areas of coverage. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Mike. I haven't seen him come on, but hopefully he'll get on. But if not, I'm going to move forward and go over this presentation with you. I think it's still going to be worth your time because I understand cyber liability because of guys at Willow Risk, and they're out of Chicago. And one of the things that I think is important is you want to go with a firm that has the ability to offer this. And the problem is, and literally, I did a technical business review with one of my insurance clients, and I have several insurance clients, bigger insurance people, and I'm like, I wish they would get somebody in house, competition is good for the consumer, but they really, our area has been lacking for a long time, and that's why I wound up going outside of the area. So I'm a big promoter of local business, so don't hate me, but I'm also a big promoter of doing what's best for the client. But Mike, he's been in cybersecurity since 2021, and he's a self-employed. He's been self-employed professional. He does a lot about understanding the client first, and that's really what I like about his approach. And a lot of other things I wish he was here to talk about, but it's really focused on the needs of the client. He understands things from a client risk perspective, and the way that he manages himself and the way that he handles himself, I think, is very client centric. And he's done a really good job with the business that I've passed him, so I can give him raving reviews. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the facts about cyber insurance. The reality is, over the past 3 years, cyber insurance claims have doubled. That's times two. And the payouts are tripling. So we're seeing more attacks, successful attacks, and the dollar amount is going up. And there's a lot of reasons why. On both accounts, why that's happening. And I think it's worthwhile for me to say this. So I want to say why they're doubling. Why are the hackers being so much more successful in their attempts, not only attempts, but successful attempts? Number one, AI is helping them a lot, especially as we look at AI uses LLM, large language models, so it can write, someone in Ukraine can write an email that is perfect English. And so they're getting better at the language so that it's harder to identify a spoof. They're also getting more sophisticated in their approach to the way that they are attacking us. And again, I go back to email because that is the primary way they're tricking people. And it's called social engineering. And we're going to talk about the panels of coverage. And the payouts are tripling, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One reason is, quite honestly, because of the insurance companies have a much broader net. The way that they're handling it, they all these big insurance companies have a team of cybersecurity experts that come in, they do an audit, and they find out really what happened, and then they're really following to the letter of the law, and the letter of the law changes based off which state that you're in, and there's some different parameters that you have to follow in that way. So that's really important to understand that part. Next, kind of fact here is for small to medium enterprises, the average insurance claim is $345,000. Really up from a few years back when it was around 100, 120, 150. So we're seeing larger payouts even for the small size companies. The global cybersecurity insurance market is valued at 7.6 billion in 21 and is projected to reach 20.43 billion by 2027. So the takeaway from this slide is a couple of things. Number one, the bad guys haven't gone away. They're getting more sophisticated, getting better, and their success rate is up by 100%, and the claims are up by 300%, and the overall insurance market is going to it has and is going to continue to expand. So we see that most likely, from if it's going to go from 7 over the next 6 years, from 7.6 billion to 20.43 billion over the next 6 years, you can see that they're projecting that the bad guys aren't going to get worse, and that the claims aren't going to get smaller. So that's not a real rosy picture, but there's ways that you can really mitigate this, and I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit throughout this presentation. So I want to pop up a poll here. Let me pull up my poll. And this is just, how long have you had cyber liability insurance? I'm always curious for these types of insights that I gain when I get to talk to people. So yeah, so I'm gonna pop this up. I'm gonna launch it. And the question is how long have you had cyber liability insurance? I don't know, more than 5 years, 1 year or less. Still got a few folks left. We'll keep talking. Of the people on this call, looks like a lot of people have had it for 5 years. Nah, I got one for just 1 year, got two. Okay. So got a couple more that hadn't entered their info. I'll give them just a second more. Anyway, we'll end the poll and I'll share the results. So basically, 80% of people have had cyber liability insurance for over 5 years, and only 20% have had it for just 1 year. So that's a really good sign, because I guarantee you 5 years ago or 3 years ago, that would not have been the same. So really, as a whole market segment. So that's good stuff. All right. Move that. So let's just talk about a couple of common cyber insurance questions. You know, Really, like, when should I start the process for cyber insurance? Well, that needs to get started, like immediately. And when should you, we'll expand on that as to like when should you actually notify your cyber liability insurance when there's been a security incident? And I would say immediately. If you don't have an incident response plan, if you'll uh, message me, I'll give you one that is pretty good. We'll need to go through and fill out some of the information, but on that incident response plan, I find so many people, and they are so like afraid to take on some of these documents because they see them as so complex. And speaking of incident response plan, just that one type of document, they a client that has a minimal incident response plan recovers 67% faster than a client who does not have one at all. That's a statistic out there. So you really need to have that incident response plan, and it identifies who should be contacted. And one of the first things I always talk about is you want to have a culture of openness, because I'll give you a war story from last week. Had a client, and they had an email breach, and one of the more sophisticated ones. And basically, what it was an attachment, and this is in the medical industry. And the attachment had all the logos from a vendor that they do business with all the time. So when you looked at the attachment, it has their logos on it, and it's basically just an image, has a link to download the claim form or whatever. So when you click the link, it actually takes you to the bad guys, the hackers' website. And it has images of the Microsoft 365, like the login screens, where you put in your email and all that. But if you looked up in the browser to see the website, it's not on Microsoft.com, it's something else. So that's something that you really want to look at, because this could be a big, big, big deal in the marketplace. So you want to be sure that always look at the URL or the web address to make sure it's really going where you're thinking. And most of the time, you're never going to have to open a Microsoft document that someone sends you like that. It's not often that they're going to want your Microsoft credentials. So anyway, it looks like Microsoft, they put in their email. Boom, another screen pops up. They put in their password. Boom, another screen pops up for their multi-factor authentication. Boom, they enter that. Bad guys take over their account. And remember, I'm talking about company culture and openness. Here's the problem: it happened to three people on a pretty large account. None of them admitted that they entered their credentials. And that is so detrimental in problem resolution, because that would have made it a whole different level. Basically, they clicked on the file and they stole their credentials, which is a whole different game I'm playing. Um, so in doing it, basically, we got the actual files, and you can sandbox files too, meaning you can run them in a controlled environment, and so that it can't harm anything, and you can see what they do. That's how I can tell you what they did, is because we sandboxed it, we ran it, and there was no way that they got their credentials without them entering them in. So again, open culture, really need to have it where people will tell you immediately, or tell someone. That's the point in the incident response plan. Who do they tell? And then who should they share it with? And then on that form, on the incident response form, you need to have your cyber liability insurance team. Every policy, if you go towards the back, it has who you should contact in the event of a security incident. Another little tip is never call it a security breach. Breaches and incidents are extra zeros on the cost phase. So you want to always refer to it as a security event or a security incident. You don't know what it is yet. That's what they do. You've changed your money for them to take that risk off of you, and they have a great team, even a team that can help you with, even the if you have the right policy, even with social handling the social aspect of it, as far as like the press releases or things you need to release to the marketplace, because again, they're kind of on the hook now. So they're going to advise you in the most business savvy way, as well as determine how it happened, who got hit, what records were lost, so you know who you have to notify, yada yada yada. So really you want to start the process now. So let's look at another one. This one's big. This is another poll here that I want to look at as far as from whoever you're getting your insurance from is how many proposals do you normally get on cyber liability insurance? Are you getting one? Are you getting 2 to 5, or are you getting more than five? And if anything from this conversation that I want to stick out to you is this, because there is a world of difference between like what you need really to make an educated choice and the number that you get. So really important that you get a good number because the price will range drastically for basically the same coverage with an A or A plus rated company. So we'll end the poll and I'll share the results. So basically, a third of you guys get one, another, 2/3 of you get 2 to 5, and then nobody's getting more than five. And I really encourage you to get with a carrier, with an insurance provider. And the problem is that most, at least locally in our market, most of the insurance people don't have relationships with a whole lot of cyber companies. So it's kind of you get what you get. Another thing that you really need to focus on is some areas of when do you get the quote? You need to mark it on your calendar. And I'm not saying that this is nefarious from the insurance guy, he's doing anything wrong or whatever. A lot of times they'll tell you, oh, your policy's due and it's due, tomorrow or next week. Well, you really don't have the opportunity to shop and see what's actually available out there. So, um, you know, you want to get ahead of the curve 90 days. That's what I really like about Mike. And I hate that he's not able to make it. He's having some technical difficulties, but is that he will put on his calendar and he'll notify his clients 90 days before because he wants to work to shop it because especially previously it's kind of calmed down now where we're not seeing such wild fluctuations, but for a long time there it was the wild west. There was people not taking risk and bailing out of markets and all that kind of stuff. So get a bunch of quotes, and then also get your quotes ahead of when it's time to renew. Don't be sure that they're not sending you the proposal a day or 2 days before the thing renews, because you really just say, oh, okay, sign and go on. So want to talk a bit, and this is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time. We're going to talk about how much and what type of coverage do you need. And it's a little bit confusing, and there's a reason that these terms, and we're going to go over some of the glossary of terms. There's a lot of information that they use very specific terms for. So let me just jump in. This is just a general quote with one, two, three, four, five, six, seven um, cyber liability companies, all A or A plus rated, and they talk about the different areas of coverage, the A minus, A whatever, A plus plus, the way that they're rated and their size of how big they are. That's very important. And I have never seen anyone that had a cyber liability insurance policy that did not get covered. So that's a good thing. But I would go with an A rated company for sure. And then this full prior acts, that's basically, it's going to cover you if there's an unknown something that happened 3 years ago that pops up, but you bought insurance this year. It's going to cover the prior acts. The limit here is the top that they will basically pay out against in all areas. And we'll talk about the all areas here in just a moment. And then what we'll call the deductible, as we all know in insurance, this is how much you would have to pay the first of, right? Basically, if you had a security incident, it's $10,000. You're going to have to pay $10,000 with this at bay, whereas with Coalition it's five, with Axis it's 2,500, so on and so forth. So then we look at the premium cost, and this is for $1 million policy, and with a company. And one of the things that insurance is derived off of is the amount of annual revenue. And this is a company that has annual revenue of $10 million, and they have 30,000 records. They have 30,000 documents, depending upon what kind of industry you're in. The documents that basically house personal identifiable information, or EPHI if you're in the medical industry, or NPI if you're in the title company, which I think all these terms mean the same thing. And I think the world has done us a big injustice, and all the compliances are very much the same, but they give them all different names, and it makes it very difficult for the average business owner, who is, to make it 5 years in business, you got to be pretty smart, definitely. But those terms make it very difficult to understand. We're going to jump into that, but you can see that the premium fluctuate quite a bit, right? 3,800 with cowbell, and here with that bay, we got 6,200 with Delta or Alpha, I think that is. I've never seen those guys, but anyway, 8,900. So that's why you want to get a bunch of numbers, and you want to have a bunch of quotes, and you want to have somebody who can explain it to you. And again, I wish Mike was here because he would do a better job at this than I'm doing right now. But you're going to get the premise, and because if it's an A company, and would you rather pay 3,800 and pay 10K, or would you rather pay 6,200? There's some areas of coverage that we're going to go into next. So we're going to talk about some terms, and there's some more documents that we're going to look at that are going to dig into a little bit of the area of coverage. So, but we'll just talk about terms in general. They have, I mean, again, you almost have in every policy and every quote, a good quote is going to have a glossary of terms. And I'll be honest with you, I have to refer to them often. So there's a ton of different type terms that they call really the same thing. Each market or each provider has a different term for it, so it makes it very difficult. Another thing that you want to think about is if you falsify documentation, and that's generally on the the questionnaire that they send you. I'm sure all of you have seen them, where they send you out a questionnaire of what controls. And a control is, again, this is kind of a cybersecurity term. A control could be a lock on the door where the filing cabinet is. It could be a password policy that changes your password, or multi-factor authentication. Those are all types of controls that you need to have in place. And based off the number of controls that you're basically putting in place to protect that information, they're going to rate you at a different cost. And some carriers, if you don't have a certain level of controls in place, they won't even quote. You don't even get to play with them. Like especially some of the really A plus plus players, um, they won't if you don't have a certain level of controls, because they're more in it for the long haul. They're like they only want to work with companies that are doing it right, so that they can really have a close control or handle on the claims that they have. And because the industry on cybersecurity insurance is more mature, they have the data now to be able to determine which controls are most effective. So when you look at these documents, these um, basically they're forms for applications, you're going to see a lot of the same things on them, because the industry has matured enough to know what is most likely, most bang for the buck for coverage or whatever, to keep you from actually having a claim on your insurance. You guys have questions, please stop me because I want to make sure that I'm communicating well. So let's talk about the falsification of documentation. Mike's in this industry all the time. We had a discussion before the call, and he very much has seen this lived out where people have not given accurate information on that form that they fill out on their application, and it definitely will bite you if you have a claim. So if you have not been filling out those forms correctly or you don't know, it is best to have a professional fill them out. I bet I fill out at least 3 or 4 a month for our clients, uh, because, and I don't lie. Because I don't want to have it to where, it'd be better to pay an extra $1,000 a year than wind up having a claim denied or having, where it costs you 100 grand on the back end. So you really want to answer those questions accurately. And if you don't know, you need to have a professional do it, because at the bottom of the form, it's basically an attestation. It's a put your hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. All these things are accurate according, that I have said. So that's not just a willy-nilly form that you just fill in answers based on your best guess. That's something that you want to take very seriously. All right, got one more poll here, and this has to do with, I want to know if people, and I want you to be honest, nobody's going to know who you are. I don't even know who you are. How confident are you that you'll qualify for the full benefits of your claim based off of the way you filled out the forms, or based off your understanding of, the insurance? How much of that $1 million policy are you going to get to apply towards problems? Getting a little mixed bag on this one. Got a few more. We'll wait just a second more, but it's really important. I have only seen one time where they limited a claim, but again, compared to what Mike sees, I see a fraction of the cases, for sure. All right. So I'll end that poll, share the results. So basically 67% are very confident. That's very good. And we got 33% that aren't confident at all. So it's something, again, I just wouldn't take it lightly because, you know, um, not knowing is worse than knowing in reality when something bad happens, So, be sure you're filling out those claims, or get somebody who knows about what they're asking to fill out those claims. All right, so this is another really important component of what we're talking about. What should I do after a security incident so I get paid? This is another huge thing, and we talked about that with the with earlier about having that security incident policy. And I would rather you write it down on a napkin and communicate it with your team like this. And I do this for people, like in over lunch sometimes. I'll pull out a napkin or a paper bag or something, and okay, we'll name off the types of things. All right, if something funny happens with an email, or a black box pops up after you click on something, who do you tell? And then you want to make sure that person is informed, and maybe somehow you maybe need to have the IT team take a deep dive on it, and take a look at it. Even if you go back to Podesta in the Hillary, Clinton era, he had some stuff going on with his email. He had a deep hack on his email, and they passed it to their security team, and the security team said, "Oh no, everything's fine." So they let the bad guys live in his email and collect a lot more data. So it was really damaging, the stuff that came out of that. But they even had their IT team look at it. So you want to deal with professionals, people that know how that world works. And there's even some really great tools out there that will let you know if someone is what's called living off the land, meaning that they have the ability to live within your account. And so you want to be sure that you notify the people and that they go through that properly. And you want to go immediately and collect all of the logs off of that email account. if it's in email, or if it's on a system, like a say a workstation or a server or something. If you've had some type of security incident, you want to go collect the logs off of that. And I'll tell you why. Um, First reason is if you've really had something, most likely the logs have been deleted. That is 101 what the bad guys do. They don't want you to understand what they do and how they do it. So they'll go and delete all the logs off of your Microsoft 365 account, off of your workstation account, or even if they get access to a server or whatever. First thing they do is delete all of the logs. So the first thing you want to do, or your IT team, is you want to, or even the cyber liability guys, that's the first place they're going to want to see. So, you probably want to disconnect that machine from the network, isolate it so that no one else can do it. Then you want to go grab those logs, and then probably call the IT, or have somebody call in the IT team, or the cyber liability guys at that same time while you're doing all of those things. And then, really, if you have good cyber liability insurance and you have that team, they're going to direct you and guide you through the rest of the process. So it's really more about those initial steps that are so crucial, because once you get it turned over to the cyber liability insurance team, they have a team that knows how to manage that situation, because, in essence, you're now partners in that risk. So they're going to guide you and help you, and they're going to have some really, really, really great service in that area. Um, Having trouble having this one particular file render, and I don't know why. And I wanted to show you, so y'all just gonna have to let me talk you through it. It's about some of that terminology, and I call them panels of coverage or areas of coverage. And I'm gonna use social engineering as one area of coverage, because um, they have different um, payouts, if you will, coverage amounts based off of these different categories. And I spoke earlier about the email incident, and literally the end user gave them their email address, their password, and their multi-factor authentication. That's going to be classed under social engineering. And you will see on most policies, say it's $1 million policy, they may only have a $50,000 payout on cyber, on social engineering, because it is so difficult to stop that. Because the end user, the only way you're going to do that is really by insuring your end user. Or I want to go a little bit more technical with a way that really makes a lot of sense to do. Most clients are on Microsoft 365. That's, your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the thing that you can leverage, there's a lot of different components in that Microsoft 365, depending upon the package that you buy. If you go with Microsoft Business Premium, and it's about 23 bucks a month, it's going to give you all the desktop apps, going to give you the cloud apps, going to give you email, and it's also going to give you two things that are essential in this higher level of security. One is Active Directory Plan One, which is where you can basically have it to where your computer, even if you're a work from home person, it's authenticating against Microsoft. And you can put some rules in place about when you change passwords. And if somebody tries to put in the wrong password a certain number of time, it locks the account. And a lot of good stuff that you can do with that. It's just like if you were in the office and you had a real domain controller server, but now they're doing it on Microsoft. And even if you have a server at the office and you have people that work outside the office, they have a hybrid where you can basically take that server based rules and put them in the cloud, so that when people are working from home or outside the office or out of the country, you can have those same policies, follow them. Very important. That's why that package, Microsoft 365 Business Premium. There's another component of Business Premium called Intune, Intune, and it will do some really awesome things. It can manage the encryption on all of your devices from a single policy that you put in place. And all this is like made so that you build it once and you manage the policy. And then anytime you replace a computer, anytime you add a new computer or anything, all those policies automatically are enforced on that particular device. So really, really, really important that that you want it's kind of like a one and done. And so when you add stuff and replace stuff, all the work that you've done is not lost. So one thing Intune will do is do encryption on, say, laptops. And I'll tell you right now, encryption on a laptop is you don't even know it. The end user doesn't even know it's encrypted. But say it got lost, and from a HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, if you lose a machine that's encrypted, you don't even have to report it. That's how great encryption is. And the Microsoft will manage the encryption keys because historically people would just go around and encrypt their devices. They wouldn't keep that big long key, and then if the machine ever had an issue, you can't read the hard drive without that key. So it actually stores the keys in the Microsoft 365 tenancy. So you're golden. Another thing is like enforcing multi-factor authentication so that you can enforce it across the board throughout the entire organization from one policy rather than trying to manage it individually on each user. Very common that people, when they're trying to manage it individually, that somebody gets missed. Uh, Another thing is you can set it up to where if you don't have, it's called the company portal is what Intune does, and it puts that app on their phone, on their computers and everything. If you don't have that installed on your machine, you can't log in. So even in that case I talked about where the person gave away their username, their email address, their password, and their multi-factor key, they could not log in because their device, browser, web browser, computer, whatever, was not already pre-registered onto that account. They cannot log in. So it's such a great way to secure your environment because you get to say, I mean, it basically puts you down to where pretty much you're going to have an insider threat, meaning one of your employees. Well, you know, that still could happen, but the chances of an insider threat, and if you got all those logs turned on and all that stuff, you're going to know who they are. So, you're versus, whatever 3.5 billion people in the world. Now we limit it to your 50 user company. So that is such a powerful thing to do. And I'm very like passionate about that because I have this defeat the breach kind of mindset, knowing because I'm seeing it, the breaches are happening at twice the rate and the payouts are three times the cost. And I get to deal with that and it makes me get old fast. So maybe selfishly I'm wanting to do that. Um, all right, so that's some things that you do after a particular security incident. Is you want to have the path of who you contact. Be sure that you contact your cyber liability insurance. Another thing is what's called third party audit logging. And there's tools out there that are very cost effective that where they will take the logs from your server, your Microsoft 365, your firewall, your computers, your phone system, really a broad swath, and it's catching all the logs and storing them in a forensic environment, meaning they can't be altered, so that the cyber liability insurance team, cybersecurity team, if because generally the bad guys delete the logs, so they think that you don't have them. Well, you really the whole time you've been storing them off site. They can then take those logs and they can piece all that together, and they can determine um, how it happened, how many records were stolen, so that they can actually fashion the who they contact and all the rules that go into that based off of facts. Whereas if you don't have those logs, it could run your case cost way up, as well as you could be notifying clients about something that really didn't happen to them, but you just don't know. So it also, from a standpoint of your relationship with your clients, kind of like your image. You're having to tell everybody because you don't know, and that's the approach that they take when they don't know. So, really important to do third party audit logging. is another component. There's really, a lot to it when it gets down to it. So, um, do we have any questions, Christy? I'm about done with what I wanted to accomplish, and I'm gonna highlight. If you got one quote, you got no quote. You need to have 90-day advance before the thing is before you're looking, so you have time to shop. And I talked about incident response plan, how important that is, and really digging in and understanding those areas of coverage, what they mean, those terms, so that you think you got $1 million policy, but somebody actually wired money because somebody tricked them socially, and you got a $50,000 coverage, but you wired 250,000. I'm just telling you, you're out 200K, and being sure that you fill out those insurance applications correctly is extremely important because you don't want to have something bite you on the backside.
So we did
And
have a couple of, oh,
okay,
sorry.
no,
We
I'm good.
did have a couple of questions come in. What kinds of cyber attacks does cyber insurance actually cover? And is there anything it won't protect us from?
That's a really good question. That's why those areas of coverage are very important. Um, Pretty much most policies will cover every type of attack that I've seen for sure, but they have different levels of coverage based off how they happen. And like some of them have a specific, you know, clause that talks about wiring of money. And let's see if I can get this out. I just want to encourage my business owner friends, if there's a way around it, it's very likely that it's going to happen. And I have a very good client who's in the title industry. And of course, there's tons of communication on email about that. It's probably one of the richest areas for fraud because the bad actors can take over somebody's email account and they can make hay with it. Well, we came up with a way where there's a service out there that does all the wiring transactions for them. And you can even notify your bank to say, listen, if don't wire any money unless this service that I have approved is asking for the wire. Don't let my own people, don't let me wire the money because if there's a way around it, people they think they're saving time. They're everybody's in a rush, right? Well, you need to make your policies in a way where there's no way around it because I promise something will happen and you'll wish you would have made it. So I can help you with some of that mindset about whenever we're looking at things because, you know, for good or bad, a lot of times I think it's for bad. I've seen a lot of stuff, I've seen a lot of ways people got their ass whipped. And I try to store that. And then I'm trying to go back to the well and figure out, well, how can I stop that from happening? How can I stop that from happening? I love the opportunity to talk to people because especially from in this scenario, because sometimes I'm a little more bold than I would be if I'm sitting with a client that I really care about. And I'm like, trying to make them turn on multi-factor. I'm trying to make them spend the money for that. They're buying the standard Microsoft 365 standard for $15, and I'm trying to make them spend 23 per user. But man, I can do so much more to protect them. And from the front of the room or on a webinar or whatever, I can say, look, you're a dang idiot if you don't do it, or something like that. So, but I really am. I'm pretty passionate about it. I've looked at a lot of scenarios, and the good news is that there is a lot of things out there that can help you. So, did I answer that question, Christy? I maybe went on a rant and didn't answer.
You sure did. No, that was right. So we had two more come in. How does cyber insurance work with our current security setup, and what do we need to do to make sure we're covered?
Yeah, it all gets down really to that application. And the thing is really you're a good insurance agent can go back to that carrier. I wish Mike was here, or I got some other friends in the industry where, like Lloyd's of London, once you kind of understand how it works, being an underwriter and all that kind of stuff, it's really neat how it works because you can go back to them and ask that specific question about, well, if this breach happened, would I be covered? Or, here's the controls I have in place, or here's basically would this lower my coverage if I'm doing. You didn't ask me about third party audit logging, but I have that. My IT guy insists on that. I do on every one of my clients. I have that, and so would that lower my rate? So again, that's why you want to start 90 days ahead of time, and you want to, if you want better answers, you have to ask better questions. So, those tips, I mean, I want you to, this was a recipe conversation. This is like, here's how you do it, guys. This is based off of, some real life experience is kind of how I wanted this webinar to roll out. All right. You
If
got one more?
one more. If we get hacked, how fast will the insurance help kick in and what kind of help will they give us?
Ah, and if I could have got that slide, and if Mike would have been here, there's actually an area on the coverage as to whether they reimburse you or they pay it directly. So all that's nailed out in the policy. And again, that's one of those things you may just kind of brush past because, oh, well, I got $1 million worth of coverage. Boom, I'm good. Where you want to ask those type questions about, am I going to have to pay it first? And then do I get reimbursed or does the insurance company pay it? And again, the premium may be a little different based off that. So, a well informed consumer who ask all the questions about all those little glossary of terms, that's why you got to have 90 days in order to get there. So that again is part of the process and a great question. So I'm gonna let everybody out a little early today, and I would like to offer anybody that's on this call a free liability insurance assessment. And this Mike is going to do this with you. And you say, you know what, my policy ain't due for another year. Mike, again, what I tried to explain on when I was introducing him was that's what I like about him. He'll put that stuff in his calendar and he'll actually call you 3 months before and say, hey, I know your stuff's coming up. Let's talk about it. So, and he'll proactively seek you out to get you the the level of coverage that you desire and give you some good consultation on how much you should have and things of that nature, but also follow up with you. So that's one thing. And then what I have done as a company is I think something that no local IT company and very few that I know anywhere, we have defined what essential cybersecurity is. Um, if you've ever been around an IT guy, and I've been doing this for 23 years, a lot of times what we do, and I've been guilty of it too, is something will bite us, something will get us, we'll get, caught by something happens in our life. And then we kind of have that confirmation bias, like we kind of have a jaundiced eye for that. And you'll wind up putting solutions in place that don't, like from a risk perspective, uh, mitigate your risk. So I've worked with the Center for Internet Security on their things, and I have a what I am calling the Iron Gate Essential Cybersecurity Audit. I will do that for you guys. And then we have a Rampart roadmap that will help you kind of visualize the areas of coverage that are going to bring you the most bang for the buck. You know, you don't want to have something really expensive in a control and you not have something very basic. The like the common things are usually the cheapest to implement and to manage because everybody needs them. A lot of times I see people they miss the common and they'll have something that they're spending a lot of money on because the IT guy got bit by that one time. Or maybe they make that's in the best light. The worst light could be maybe they make a lot of money off that solution. I don't know. But again, I have defined what we're calling Iron Gate Essential Cybersecurity, and I'll do that audit on your account. And then I'll also put together, it's really a gap analysis. So if y'all want to take me up on that, looks like my camera gave out on me. Uh-oh. Hey, Christy, can you hear me?
I sure can. Your
Okay, can
camera
you?
has gone black,
That's fine.
but we can hear you.
Well, that's good. I got my Zoom is sitting here steady spinning, and I can't switch the well, I can switch the screen, which is fine. Okay, so we've been wrought with technical difficulty. Maybe it was the same people that Trump and Elon Musk deal. But anyway, if you want to take us up on that the free assessment on insurance and then also your network assessment, all you have to do is you can hit me up, you can email security at AskBIS, or you can call 800-251-800-9083. So, all right. Any closing comments? Anything? Any last questions or anything? Or if not, I'll let you guys have back a full 10 minutes of your life.
Yep, I don't see anything else coming in. I think you got them all answered.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much and stay safe out there. And I hope you have a great weekend coming up.